So anytime.
Okay, and you don't need to focus, you don't need to turn it to Scottish both?
No, what I do here with the technologies, I'm recording this in like ultra high def,
Yeah.
and so I can actually sort of zoom in and out in the editing.
Okay.
Oh, really?
So I just start it and I leave it alone.
Okay, just tell me what to do.
Okay, my name is Roger Swick. I'm a resident of at Garden Grove, and I've lived at Roseville for about 15 months now. And today we are talking with Roseville resident Darlene Hooley, who represented the 5th Congressional District of the House of Representatives for Oregon for 6 terms from 1997 through January 2009. She served on the committees of Veterans Affairs, Budget, and Financial Services. Darlene, the 5th District is a fairly large one. It extends from Milwaukee and Clackamas County down through Marion County, Salem, Polk County over to the coast, up through Tillamook and down through Lincoln City, and it's 3,000 miles from Washington, D.C. How did you manage the physical limitations of this?
Well, it was a big district to cover, and I loved having that district. It was very diverse, and you had some very small counties and larger counties and small cities and a little larger cities. But and then eventually it actually moved into a little bit of Portland as well. So I had it was a big district, and it was a very diverse. But I loved my district. I loved spending time with the farmers, because that's how I grew up, was on a farm. Spending time with the problems at the coast are very unique from problems that are, at other parts of this district, and I found it fascinating, and what their issues were and what they cared about.
Did you require 2 office staffs, one in Washington and one in the district?
Yes, I had one in the district, and she's still in the district working for Kurt Schrader. Oh. And one in DC who was wonderful and magnificent. I got lots of people talk to me about her and said, the person she was working with is no longer here. You might want to have an interview with her. And she turned out to be really terrific.
Hmm. Did you feel that you needed to travel very frequently back to the district?
I traveled a lot in my district. I didn't travel so much elsewhere. I made a couple of long trips through my science committee, but I came home every weekend.
Yeah, every weekend.
From DC to Oregon. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't come home every weekend. I would do it every other. And it turns out that the reason I left is because of the plane rides, and it turns out I had sickness with heights, and so I got off the plane every time I came home, and I felt rotten, and then I would go around my district, and then I'd get on the plane and feel great until I got to DC, and for a day afterwards I felt lousy again. So it was that actually influenced whether or not I would run again.
You had a progressive record on gun issues, and you earned an F rating from the National Rifle Association.
I don't think, I talked to a lot of them, and it was really interesting to talk to those people that, and I know lots of people that go hunting and have rifles, my dad on the farm had a rifle and taught us how to shoot at a pretty young age. But after I was on my own, I didn't want a gun anywhere close to where we are. And to this day, I am really supporting trying to change the gun laws and how we can cut down on the number of people that really have no reason to have a gun, and people that, you know, go deer hunting or whatever, or if they live on a farm and there are problems. I don't mind that they have them. It is just unbelievable how it is not controlled at all.
Did this cause you any trouble in your efforts in your elections, your stance?
Yes, it did, as a matter of fact. And I always have someone at every one of my town hall meetings that always, let's talk guns. And so this one guy that came several times, I would deliberately be there early and sit down and say, let's talk about guns. And trying to be, I mean, there's legitimate reasons why you might have a gun, and there are a whole lot of not legitimate reasons why you need a gun at your home. And so I just spent a lot of time talking to him, and he said, well, you hate guns. I said, no, I hate what they do.
When you, we were talking the other day, and you mentioned at your first committee meeting, you had a minor faux pas.
I had a very big faux pas. It was interesting. I, you know, had not spent a lot of time in DC, and I went to my first committee meeting, which was probably my least likely committee to sit on, which was financial services. And I'm going, okay. And I walked to the door, went in, introduced myself, talked to people, you know, while everybody was coming, because there were 70-some people on this committee. And when I got through and it was time to find my seat, which was at the far right bottom seat, my staff person said, Darlene, do you know what you did? And I said, yeah, I mean, I walked in the door, I introduced myself, and I sat down. Now, how much trouble have I caused thus far? and she said, you came in the wrong door. I said, I came in the wrong door? There's a right door and a wrong door? And so she explained to me how it worked, which the Republicans went in one door and the Democrats went in another door. And I'd never heard of that before. So anyhow, I got teased about that a lot, but I met a lot of people, both Republicans and Democrats, doing that.
You had the foresight to oppose the measure to authorize the use of force in Iraq, a vote which many of those that voted positive later regretted. How did this come about?
Well, I don't like war, and I don't like guns, and a few other things. So I spent some time really thinking about, you know, when we had votes that would keep the war going and what our role was going to be. And it was at a time where the whole issue started with weapons of mass destruction, which were poisons and that kind of thing. And we had people looking for, you know, looking for all the things that had been collected in Iraq, and nobody found anything. But we went to war anyhow, and I had a hard time trying to figure out why we would go to war before we had done everything we could to have tried to find what people were talking about, and these weapons of mass destruction. Well, other than guns and those little bombs that went off, there was no, it was all false. And so I ended up voting against the war, but then I ended up also spending time in Iraq, making sure that we had the right equipment and that we were, what else were we doing and how we were trying to work with all of the different groups in Iraq that were all headed by some one person in their group, and it wasn't, they weren't all connected. They came from every direction, and they never did find weapons of mass destruction. And I voted against it because if we wanted to keep people safe there, we had to have the right vehicles, the right kind of clothing, a way to clean them afterwards. And I spent a lot of time reading about it and figuring this is not ever going to happen. We're never going to have enough of those uniforms that you have to clean every time and have the right sizes. I mean, it's complicated. And I said, this doesn't even make sense to not continue to look for those weapons of mass destruction before we went to war. But I didn't. I lost that one.
You mentioned your trip to Iraq. You believe you took a 10-day trip to Iraq in roughly 2003?
Yeah, I think it was about then. I took a trip there, and it was, I think it was 5 women that went, 2 Democrats and 3 Republican women that went over there. And I went there for some very specific things. And one was I talked to manufacturers of new kinds of helmets that would protect them better, and tried to find out what they were using today and if they really would use this other and it really would work. And they hadn't unarmored their vehicles, and that's at the time where they had all those little bombs sitting all over, and it would come up through the bottom of the vehicle and killed a lot of our soldiers. And there were people in Clackamas County that did that kind of work with up-armoring the vehicle and trying to get them connected with the military. And when I found better helmets, I tried to, make sure that they knew about them and what they were like and how much they cost and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Nancy Pelosi became the Democratic minority leader.
Yes.
In 2003, and the speaker later in 2007. How would you describe her leadership?
Well, Nancy knew what she was doing, and I'm not going to say it was a mistake, but I had someone else from the Democratic Party who was the next in line to Nancy. And he was the one that flew out here and spent time with me and talked to me about, some of the things that I would be up against and just what it would be like. And so I had a very good rapport with him. And so when those two ran against each other, I voted for him instead of Nancy. Well, Nancy has a wonderful ability to, if you cross her, you lose. And I learned that very quickly. But she was great to work with. And she was, compared to the leader before her, she had all of her little duckies in the row, and she knew what she was doing. She had great staff, and she made no bones about it. I mean, you either supported her 100%, or you were in trouble, or you had some committees taken out from under you. So, and I experienced that, and I thought, I learned another lesson here. I learned lots of lessons from this whole thing.
As we're speaking,
By the way, I think she's doing an amazing job.
okay. As we're speaking, Biden's choice for vice president is pending, and I think the recent news is that it's down to probably Karen Bass, Kamala Harris, or perhaps Susan Rice. Oh, who would your choice be?
Susan Rice. But I think he's gonna pick the one from California. I know her name. I can't. Oh my gosh.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Cameron. I think that's who he's going to pick. But my choice would be Rice.
And why would that be?
Part of it comes from spending way too much time watching TV and watching what was going on, and Camelia knows a lot about what's going on. She's very good. She's very smart, and but I just sitting watching TV, I had some problems with how she sort of attacked people, and that's not. I don't like that approach, but she's smart and she's good, and I mean she'd be great.
Okay.
But I would prefer Rice.
Yeah, I think Rice comes across as very smart, but she's never won an election. Do you think that would cause problems later on?
I don't know. Yeah, and both of them are smart. Both of them would do, I think, a great job.
Okay. Do you think Biden will be successful in repairing all the damage to government?
I think he will be very successful. I had the privilege of working when he was vice president and working with him, and I really admired him and how he chose to do things. And it was very much, I mean, he was home. Now, he lived close enough to be at home, but he was home every weekend, I mean, and most nights of the week. And he is smart, and he is thoughtful, and he is tries to do the right thing. And I like how he also, his family was really important to him, and he made an effort to go home every night, because unlike me, I couldn't go home every night. It'd take 2 days.
Well, in conclusion, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or?
I loved what I was doing, and I loved meeting the people in my district. I came from a farm, so I mostly got along with the farmers. having half of the coast, I enjoyed that, and people, but their issues were all different. And then you get into Marion County. It was a very diverse district, but I loved it. And I just had so many good experiences. I am very happy and grateful that I was elected and able to serve. And I worked really hard at trying to make sure that I served the district as, you know, and tried to, when we went to war in Iraq, I spent a lot of time saying, let's get the best equipment for the men and women that we send there.
Mhm.
And that's one of many things I did. I also irritated some of the military, but but I, you know, they took all of the Oregon Guard, and when they take the Guard, we no longer have any say about the men and women that are in the National Guard. And so I went down to Texas to see what it was like, and then found out that they had, the guns were not working correctly. They had their ammunition on one side, but when they got just sent to Iraq, it was going to be on the other side. The places where they were put to stay, it was dirty, filthy, impacted their health. They didn't have any soap or toothpaste or anything else. And so I ended up calling our National Guard leader. And once they left our Guard, the person that was head of the National Guard had no say over them. I mean, they were now part of the regular military. And so I spent some time calling him and saying, you need to call and get them some soap and some toilet paper and stuff to clean these barracks. I mean, they were awful. So I went down there 2 or 3 times to spend time with them, and it was all, I mean, I could tell you story after story about what I saw and what I heard. And so I was there trying to make it, they were going to go to war, I wanted to have the best.
Okay. Well, Congresswoman, thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It was just an amazing experience, and I'm grateful that I got to do it.
Also, thank you for all your years of public service.
You are welcome. I enjoyed it, I loved it, and I have nothing but good memories about it.
A follow-up question? So I'm really curious about having been a public official, and now you're in a retirement community. How has retirement gone? Are you still really plugged into politics, or have you actually been able to, like, retire?
No, I'm retired, but I still am active in some things. And still make sure I have a part. And it's been interesting to retire, and I do have people call me for several things, but I will tell you something, because I'd never had, through my family or anyone else, I'd never had any thing to do with the military. I mean, I was just, none of my family served. And little did I think that I would get so involved in the military. I mean, I'm just shocked at, but it was trying, if we're gonna have a military and they're gonna be over there, I just wanna make sure that wanted to make sure that they had the right stuff so that they didn't unnecessarily, I mean, I don't like war. I don't like guns. But it was, if you're gonna do it, let's make it as safe as we can and lose as few people as we can.
Totally different question. Where was that farm you grew up on?
Huh?
Where was the farm you grew up on? Where in Oregon? You say you grew up on a farm?
Did I?
You grew up
I'm
on...
sorry, I couldn't
Yeah.
hear what you said.
Because
Yeah.
this mask doesn't help.
Yeah.
So you grew up on a farm?
Yeah, I did.
Where in Oregon was it?
In North Dakota.
Oh, in North Dakota. Ah.
Yeah.
Not Oregon at all.
And that
Okay.
really beautiful North Dakota where they had no trees and no greenery. And we had no electricity. We didn't have anything.
So what got you to Oregon?
Pardon?
How did you get to Oregon?
My dad's mother was living in Oregon. And although he hadn't been to Oregon, he finally decided to visit his sisters and his mother. And we came from North Dakota, packed up with the kids and my mom and dad, and we drove to Oregon. And my mother couldn't believe all the greenery, all the fruit, all of those kinds of things. Because in North Dakota, there's no greenery, there's no trees, there's some wheat, being planted and harvested. But it's really a very sad place to live. And so when we all got in the car and came to Oregon, my mother fell in love. I mean, she just couldn't get over that there were trees and there were fruits and she just went on and on and on. So she said to my dad, as we were leaving town, she said, "Can we buy a house here?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. If you find something for under $6,000, then I'll think about it." So my mom looked for houses while she was here, and on the way out, there was a house that had a for sale sign, and all of us were in the car, and all of us were packed into the car headed for North Dakota. There was a for sale sign, and she said, "Stop, that's for sale." And he said, "Yeah, that's going to be too expensive." And she said, "Well, let me go ask." So we stopped and asked. She went up to the door and asked the woman, she didn't ask to go in. She asked the woman, "How much does this cost?" And the woman said, $6,000. My mom said, "I'll take it." And there were 4 kids and 2 adults, and it was a small 2-bedroom place, but that's what I grew up in Salem, so. And it was, it was fine. We managed. And then my dad went to see if he could make bedrooms upstairs in the attic, and he was turned down by the city. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to make 2 storage rooms up there." And he said, "I'm going to store 1 kid in one room and store another kid in the other room." And they never said anything. But it was a small place, but it was fine. I was so happy that we had running water. Are you kidding me?
One other question. So how was it that you ended up at Roseville?
Because I campaigned here. And of all the places I campaigned, I liked this place, and I liked the place. I loved how smart the people were, or at least how great the questions were that they used to ask me. And I'm going, "Oh my gosh." These almost have IQs of 200. But, so it was, I liked how they operated. And I liked the fact that, I mean, this was the first place to have gay men, for example, and gay women. I mean, and I thought, I love the fact that it didn't matter your color, it didn't matter what your religion was, it didn't matter how you wanted to identify yourself. I like the fact that they accepted you and you were part of the family.
Since you said campaign, I have to ask one more, which is a hot discussion topic here has been that we have to be very careful on what we do in politics because Roseville is a 501c3.
Yeah.
So you say you campaigned here. It couldn't have been something sponsored by Roseville because they're a 501c3. So how did that work? How did you campaign?
I didn't know they had it. They probably didn't have that restriction when I was campaigning. All I know is, I mean, every year I also went right next door and they always had at least 200 people sitting in the room, and it was, I mean, it was a huge deal. Here it was less because it was a smaller place, but no, I came and campaigned in all of them. No, I didn't campaign, I just talked to them.
Yeah,
Yeah, talking about issues is okay. Campaigning.
Yeah, I wasn't there, I didn't say, oh, vote for me or hand out anything, no. But what I found with both places is that these two places were the best questions I got anywhere. And some of the hardest questions I had, they were, and I thought, oh, I have to know that. But they would help me sometime as I struggled through some of the issues. But they were, both places were terrific. And what I remember about here was, it was small and it was sort of run down, but they had great food.
Oh.
Because they would always feed me when I came here. And then when I'd go to Well Heaven, they would always fill a room of 200 people and ask the best questions. I mean, they would just go right to the to the ones you didn't want to answer. But anyhow, so that's how I knew both of them. And you know, I've spent a lot of time in Clackamas County because I was in the legislature and county commissioner, and I'm very proud of the stuff I got to do. And I've had an amazing life. I've got to do things that most people don't get a chance to do. And it added to how I thought about things. It made a difference on being able to communicate with people and people in both places. And I talk about that because this is the place I campaigned these two. Some of the smartest people I've ever met lived in these two places. And I was impressed by them, and they seemed to care and seemed to ask questions that I couldn't answer. But it was a lesson every time I came to either place. I learned so much about this, and I lived in Clackamas County for a long time, and I served on the city council, served county commissioner, served as a member of Oregon legislature, nothing I ever expected to do. I mean, this wasn't any dream of mine. It just sort of happened.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd be upset about something, or somebody would come and say, would you work with me because this is what's happening? And I go, oh, sure. And so from other people, and throughout my life, I've had wonderful people to work with, and people who are just concerned about what was going on and say, I'm concerned about this, would you help me? And I go, why are you picking on me? I don't know very much about this, but then I'd get involved in that, and then I'd get involved in something else.
Mm.
And I never in a million years ever expected that I would serve in the Oregon legislature or be in Congress. Those were not my dreams. They're just, when they couldn't find anybody else to run, they'd say, hey, come on, Darlene, you gotta run for this. But I am very blessed with the life I've had.
Very good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And thank you, Roger.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, did you get anything out of this?
Oh, sure.
Okay.